The recording has begun. We will today cover the technology that's available to you readily in Office 365, but most of all, we'll focus on using OneDrive for your personal files, but we will touch upon the other areas of Office 365 that can be used to manage your files. The other thing that we'd like to offer you today is the ability to become a certified Microsoft Innovative Educator. That's somebody that's obtained training, and today's training is obviously around how to manage your files. But to make that easier for you, instead of going to the Microsoft Education Center and studying this yourself, we will cover everything you need, and it's the equivalent of having done that module of study. If you've not been there before, you can open up a web browser and a search engine and type in Microsoft Education Center, and where the two little fingers are pointing in the current slide in the top right hand corner, you can sign in if you already have an account. If you don't have an account, you can use your school email address. It's pretty quick and easy to do. It syncs across, and then at the end of the session I'll give you a code. You can type it in and you can redeem it, and when you redeem it, you'll get a badge to say that you've attended a customized course training today, and that's around file management. It will also give you 1,000 points for the Microsoft Education Center, and that automatically makes you what's called a certified or a qualified Microsoft Innovative Educator. The great thing about the Microsoft Education Center is that it's got a wealth of courses, and should you want to go and find out some more information or even follow up on today's information, all you need to do is go in there, type something like OneDrive or managing files, and it will come up with all the relevant courses. It's got videos, it's got activities, it's got materials to download and use, and it's all in one place. And for you as CPD, it tracks your personal development, and it will build up the badges you collect and the experience you've got and the knowledge that you're accumulating. If you find that it's really helping you, you can decide to take things one step further, and in the new year we'll be running a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert course. What that means is it's the next step on from being an MIE, and it can be for anyone in the school regardless of their role, but it's somebody who wants to take technology and use it either within their role or within the school to help transform the way that people work. As I said, we'll come back to that later on, but today is all about getting you to understand how to manage your files. So the rough agenda for today is looking at OneDrive. We'll have a look at the real live situation. We'll examine how to get files in, also then how to share and collaborate and edit. We'll primarily look at doing that online, although we'll touch upon software that might be installed on your computer. And then towards the end, we'll have a look at collaborative and shared files, which is where Teams and SharePoint comes in. If you've got any questions, as I said, I'm quite happy to take them as we go through, or if you want to fire them to me at the end, again, I'm more than happy to do that. We have a few more people that will be joining us during the session, so as they arrive in the session, don't worry about it. They'll get reminded to turn the cameras off if not, and we will just carry on through, and they'll join in as we progress. So the first question that people usually say, well, why should I change? Why should I stop saving things on the server or on my computer and start to put things in OneDrive, which is in what we call the cloud, which in reality is a piece of server space over at Microsoft, and it's for education. It's stored in Dublin, so it's GDPR compliant, and it's a safe place to put your files, and for your OneDrive, only you would be able to get access. The benefits are that you're able to always have them up to date, and you can access them from absolutely anywhere. You don't have to worry about taking the computer with your files on anymore. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can jump on a computer, open up a web browser, and you don't even need software to be installed on that computer anymore. It might be one that you're borrowing, you might be working on one at home, but in the web browser, you'll be able to access all your files and a lot of the Microsoft software that's required to edit those files as well. It also makes the sharing of files easier, and also the collaboration between members of staff in a school or between staff and pupils much easier. Particularly, I've used it when teaching previously, and I can have a file and very quickly it can go across to the pupils, and they could be editing the same file or collaborating in the same file, and it's got them all in there together. The final thing is it makes it easier to communicate. It takes away the need to do things like emailing files backwards and forwards because they're all up there in the cloud in your OneDrive. To clear things up at the beginning, I've already mentioned OneDrive and SharePoint, and you may not be entirely familiar with those. We'll look at what they are in a real example next. But OneDrive is for you and you only. It's a bit like your N drive or your home drive on the school server at the moment. Only you can log into that and no one else can see the files and folders in there. Well, OneDrive works in exactly the same way. You could think of it a bit like having an external USB drive or an external hard drive in the cloud if you don't keep your files on your computer or in the school network. And it definitely cannot be accessed by anyone outside of your login unless you invite them to do so. And we'll look at how you invite people in to get to files in a little bit. The opposite of that, where OneDrive is personal, it's guarded, it's safe, it's only you. The other side is SharePoint. And as the name suggests, SharePoint is similar to shared drives on a server. So it might have been a whole school shared drive, an admin team shared drive. It might have been the pupil shared drive, the teacher shared drive. Well, now that goes in things like SharePoint or Teams. The reason that you would use SharePoint or Teams is that it can be accessed and modified by anyone. So if it was your personal document or your only copy, you wouldn't probably throw it in a shared area. But if it was something like a template that you might use in the admin team, then there could be a very good reason to have it in an admin SharePoint so everyone can go and pick it up and use it. It could be something like headed paper to use for the school when you're going to write a letter to a parent. Equally, if you were in a teaching and learning role, it could be some planning, and it might be that you're planning in a particular subject and there's a number of people that might teach the same subject, or maybe you've got a couple of people within the same year group. Well, they could go in and they could work on that planning together and it would develop together. You've just got to remind people that once it's in SharePoint or Teams, they're editing the copy that everyone else sees, and they've got to be mindful of that. Teams itself has what's called team files, but Teams files are SharePoints as well. And although they sit in Teams, they're all the same thing. So you've got OneDrive, that's you, no one else can get to it. SharePoint and Teams files are collaborative, and they are enabling the community to easily get to some materials that maybe traditionally would have lived on the server. Before I go into anything about personal OneDrive, has anybody got any questions on what we've covered so far, or any insights into how they're managing the files in their school? Again, you can feel free to unmute if you wish, or you can type away in the chat on the side. Nope, not at the moment. That's absolutely fine. We'll continue on, but if you do think of anything, please do let me know. So moving into OneDrive, and that's going to be one of the big focuses of this session. If you've not used it before, when you first log in, it will look a bit like this, and we'll show you where to go to get to it. Now, you can access OneDrive in the cloud through a web browser, and that's what we're going to look at today. But you can also have OneDrive as a piece of software on your Windows laptop. And all you do is sign in with your email address and password that you normally use to sign into Office 365 in your Outlook email. And then that will mean everything that we're going to look at in the web browser version would sync to your computer, and then you'd end up being able to view them like folders and files through what's called Windows Explorer, and that's where you would normally go to view your personal files or server shared files. So you can either manage them from the cloud through a web browser, or you can manage them through having OneDrive as an application running on your computer. The two, providing they're set up for it, usually by default sync. So if you make a change on your computer, it will then sync back up through the internet, and the copy will be in the cloud as well as on your computer. However, there are rules where you can say it's only on your computer or it's only in the cloud. So you do need to get your IT support to check that. But by default, they're normally syncing both ways. So if you make a change in the cloud, it'll push to your computer when it's connected to the internet. Make a change on your computer, it will push back up to the cloud. So everything's in sync all of the time. The three areas we're going to start off with are circled in red on the left-hand side of this diagram, and that's files, recent, and shared. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at how they fit together and how they enable you to get to all those different files and how you can manage those files so that you are more confident with managing your own files. And it may be that in the moment they're on the server, they're still on your home drive, and you're thinking, I could just do with getting them out of here and moving into what's going to be the future, and that's using OneDrive over using a home drive on the server. And gradually, over time, using things like OneDrive and SharePoint will become the norm, and servers won't disappear altogether, but having files or shared files on the server will be less of a thing moving forwards. I'm just going to swap screens and nip across to show you the live OneDrive and what that looks like. While I'm moving across, has anybody got any questions or anything they'd like to ask at all? Okay. If there isn't, I will move over. So you should see a window that says good afternoon, and this is what's called the landing page for Office 365. If you're a member of staff, you might go straight to your Outlook email when you log in, or you may end up coming here. To get to where I currently am, you open up a web browser. The new Microsoft Edge browser is fabulous. Google Chrome's really good, so is Mozilla Firefox. They're three current browsers that work very well with Office 365. Don't use Internet Explorer. Microsoft abandoned it. It's no longer functioning properly with Office 365. It's what's called a legacy old web browser, so don't use Internet Explorer anymore. Once you open up your web browser, you can type in the address bar at the top www.office.com and then hit enter, and it will come to a login page. You pop in your email address and your password, and it will either arrive here or arrive at your Outlook email. You can navigate between all the apps if you've not been in here before using the app launcher in the top left hand corner. It used to be called the waffle, but it's now called the app launcher. You click it and you'll see all of the apps that you use here. Sometimes you can reorganize those and prioritize them, so you might have slightly different apps to the ones I've got. I've also got administrative rights here in this version of Office 365, so that will give me some extra options to click on. If you click OneDrive, it will open up in another tab, and that is where we're going to go next. So here is the online cloud version of OneDrive, and on the left there are the three circles that we looked at: My Files, Recent, and Shared. So we'll just look at what each of those do for you before we start to look at how we can get our files into OneDrive and how we can manage them once they're here. My Files, the area on the left, is where I currently am, and that's where I have all the folders and files that I own and I keep safe and I keep private to me. You can either drag and drop files and folders into here, so you could open up a window that shows all of your normal documents you might have in your My Documents on your computer. You just highlight them, drag them over and let them go, and they will upload to the cloud. If you're going to do that, make sure that you've got internet connection that's quite reliable, and make sure that they all sync into the cloud before you shut your computer down or close the lid if you're using a laptop. But once they're in here, they will then take care of themselves. You've got on the left hand side recently edited or recently accessed files. So looking back, I haven't had a lot of activity over here, but you can see last week I edited a reading progress record, and then previously in the months before I was editing OneNote files, and they're sat there. The more you use it, the more you're going to have a history, but it gives you a flavor of your recent. So if you just want to quickly get back to something you were using yesterday, instead of drilling down through folder after folder, you could just go to recent and you can pick it up from there. The next area that's really handy is called the shared area, and we'll look at how you share folders and files in just a bit. But once somebody has shared something with you, it will appear in your shared list. So here is my shared with you files. They're all there, and then what I can do is I can open up a file and it's been sent to me by somebody else, but I'll be looking across the internet into their OneDrive where they've given me specific permission to view the files that are in a folder, or just a single file in a folder, or maybe an entire folder, and I can edit from their OneDrive, but looking at it in the shared list. The thing to be aware of here is that you're editing their original document, and if you do make some changes, it's going to affect the one copy they've got, so be respectful and be mindful of that. If you want to take a copy because they've shared it with you for whatever purpose, you can click on it, and then that was someone's gone wrong. Let's say that one there. You can open it, and then you can make a copy. Let me go into here. So this is a maths progress document, and then you can go to file. There's various ways to do this. Save as, and you can save a copy into your area online. So there would be the need to take a copy of it, not to just use the files and folders that were shared with you originally. I might just refresh that and see if we can get that list just to reappear. So that's the three areas: my files, recently accessed, or shared with me. You can't organize the shared with me files and folders. They will stay in one big long list. There is no way to change that. You can organize them by name alphabetically. You can organize them by the date they were shared with you or the person that shared with you, but you can't tidy them up. You're stuck with them being a list, because really they belong to somebody else, and they're just giving you the privilege of looking into their private OneDrive and the file they've shared with you. If we pop back over to my files, before we do, I just want to check if anybody has any questions about those three areas. Anything at all? No? Okay, we'll keep going. In your My Files area, as I've already said, you can drag and drop your files in, and you can open up a window where you normally look at your pictures, your videos, your My Documents, or it might be a server shared area, and you just highlight them, left click with the mouse button, bring them over here, let that go, and they upload. The other way to upload is to use the upload button. And if you're going to use the upload button, you can select to upload files, and that will only look at individual files such as a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a OneNote, or you can upload a folder containing more folders and more files. The easiest way to do it is to drag and drop. And with a lot of what we're going to discuss today, there's many different methods to get to the end point. So with upload, you can drag and drop or use the upload button. If you want to create something new, there's the new button here, and it allows you to make a new folder or start a new Microsoft Office document. It also allows you to bring in a link from a website. So let's have a look at how we do that. If I went into administration, I might like a new folder here called templates, because I'm going to have some templates that I'm going to use. So I click create, and it's absolutely instant. The same would be true if you're syncing via the OneDrive app on your computer and you happen to make the folder on your computer. It would come back to the cloud in a few seconds. So there's my templates folder, and click inside of it, and then I could make a new file. I think I'm going to go backwards. Now, one of the things here is your navigation bar, and this allows you to move up and down folder structures. So if I wanted to get back to the level above, instead of pressing back on the web browser, I navigate using the buttons up there. Now, I could get back to my files by clicking there or there, but I think I'm going to stay in administration, and this is where I'm going to make my new Word document. Now, Word will open quite happily as what's called a web app in your web browser, and you'll have most of the functions that's in the full-blown software that might be installed on your computer. If at any time you think, do you know what, I'm not quite so happy, if you've opened the file in the web version, you can always then force it to go to the download version. So if you want to open it in the downloaded version on your desktop, you can force it to go there, and we'll look a little bit later where it goes. But once you've opened it from the online OneDrive, it will always save back to OneDrive, so you don't have to worry about working out where you're going to save it afterwards. That is taken care of automatically. So here, this might be headed paper, and we're going to use that for the school. And then in here might be address, If I can type this afternoon, and then it might be telephone and so forth. So you're setting out a headed note paper. You're probably going to have a logo for the school and so forth. So that's our headed paper. You've got all your tools in here, and in real time, everything is saving all the time. Any changes you make are just like you're using the software on your computer, and you've got the tabs in here for a lot of the same functions that you're going to have in the full-blown software. You've got them up here in the cloud. When I said earlier, you can do everything from the web browser and you don't need to have any software installed, I truly meant that, and you can work quite happily. Now we've got that being edited, I've called that headed paper, but over here it's still got the same name. And if I change tabs, it's still called document there. So I can rename it by clicking the dots and going to rename over here in OneDrive. But in the modern world of using web apps, you can just click on the name up here. And instead of that saying document, we can delete that and we can say headed paper, and then click out of it. That's renamed itself there. It matches what the purpose of this document is. And if I go back over to my OneDrive and I refresh, and always pull through every time, that's now headed paper as well. Because that's saving all the time, I don't need to worry about going over to File over here and Save As. That's not a thing I need to do. Could download a copy and take it out if I wanted, but it's all taken care of in my OneDrive. So apart from if you need to take a copy for some unknown reason, I would leave it all in your OneDrive. You can download as PDFs from there as well if you need to export a copy of this as a PDF. I'm simply going to close the web browser by pressing the cross, and because it's all been saving all the time, if I happen to click on it again, it'll open up the tab. There's my thing. So the next one might be email, and I finished with that, so I'll close it down again, and if I came back in again, it's there ready to go. So it's all taken care of by the fact everything's saved in the OneDrive. Now I've made a bit of a mistake there. I've created my document and it's not sat inside of my templates folder, so I could go and pick it up, I could move it, let it go, and then it will move inside of templates. So now when I go in templates, I've got my headed paper. The same would be true if you're using the OneDrive app on your computer. If you move them around, it will move them around online. You don't need to go and reorganize. It's all synced. To move things back online is one step more than you would normally do on a computer. So you tick it, and when you tick your file, you'll notice, I'll untick a moment, you've got a certain set of options here. Now we looked at new and upload, and we'll look at the other options there, but the download button is there too. But when you tick it, in the ribbon at the top here, the options that you have change. So I'll tick it. Now I've got many more options to use and even more hidden underneath the dots there. And the same will be true if I click the three dots there. The same options that appear in the ribbon at the top are listed in that pop out. So as I said, there's more than often one way to get to things, and it's a really good way of doing it. Now I could move that file. So if I wanted to move that file and it was over here in OneDrive, I can click on that and I can either take a copy of it or I can move it. So if I wanted to move to, it then brings out a button on the side and it's your OneDrive. So I'm going into my OneDrive. I want that in administration. And then after I've got that in administration, I might click move here, and then that's moved and I go back to administration and there's headed paper. So you can move things backwards and forwards that way. It's easy to drag and drop and move in. It's that extra step to move out, or you could do it as the app on your computer. The other beauty of having this document here is it's saved in your OneDrive. If you delete it and it goes to your recycle bin, it will sit there for 180 days before your recycle bin auto empties. So you've got a period of time to get it back. But you can go to version history. Now, if I click version histories, it's saving automatically. And here you can see version 1 of the document, version 2 of the document, and version 3 of the document. It was saved at different times this afternoon as I've been talking to you, 351, 353, and 354. And if I'd made an absolute catastrophic mistake or somebody had deleted something really important, all I've got to do is roll back to the version at 353, or it might have been the prior day, and I'll get it back to where it was. And that's taken care of by OneDrive. So it's not the end of the world now. If you make a mistake or something's edited, you can easily go back because you've got that thing called version history. Before I move into the other options along the top here, does anybody have any questions about that, either to go in the chats or if anybody wants to unmute and ask me anything at all? Silence. Okay, I'll continue on for now. So with the example we've got there, which is the headed paper, we can get that shared more easily. Now, the first way of sharing could be to copy the link for the document. So if I've got it ticked, and this will only appear if you've got it ticked by ticking on the left-hand side, I can press the copy link button. And what it will give me is a URL or an address for a link to that document. And as it currently stands, it would say that if anyone got that link, they could use it to access that private document in my OneDrive. Now, it's not a good idea at all to leave anyone with this link as the option that you've got. You can get your IT support to change the default on that, and there are other options. If I press anyone with this link, you can have it people in your organization, so that would say people in and then the name of your school with this link, or people with existing access if you shared that file to them previously, or specific people and you name who those people are. For GDPR and data protection reasons, I would always urge you to choose specific people. So if I chose specific people, I've still got further options down the bottom here. So I can have it that people can edit. If I want them to have a view-only version of the document, I untick editing, and then I've got full control over that. If I wanted to take another step, I could slide this button across here, and that means they can't even download a copy. It blocks them from having that option. So all they can do, if that's the case, is if I name them, they can have a look at the picture of it in the window, they can read it, but they can't do anything with changing it, and they can't download a copy and take it off anywhere else. If it was a colleague and I wanted to collaborate, well, I'm going to leave allow editing there. And there's a review mode where it will track the changes they make, and then you can see the suggestions they made during review. Now, you can add the email addresses of specific people there, or just apply it. And those specific people might be, let's say, have I got I've got a teacher that I'm working with, so therefore I've named that person, I press apply, and then all of those options I've just chosen are bundled up there in the bottom. So that means that I can then copy that link, and I might put that in a newsletter if it was a parent I wanted, or parents I wanted to get a document to. It might be colleagues. It could be if I work in a trust and I've got other schools or in academies that are in that trust, that I'm getting that shared out across there. And that is one way to do it. But that does involve an extra step that you don't need to take. One thing you'll have also noticed down here is it's moved from being marked as private to being shared, and I'll teach you in a bit how to undo that sharing. So that's copy link, and it's gone to shared because I named that imaginary teacher to share it with. The most likely way to collaborate with people through having your files or your folders in OneDrive is to tick it as we've done here and press the share button. This replaces the need to email anything, because what you can do is you can send people a message directly. So in here, the default option is still anyone with this link. I'm going to change that to specific people. I'm going to leave it on allow editing and so forth. I'm going to press apply. So then that ravels up and collapses that menu, and all those choices I've made are up here at the top. I'm going to name the person I want to speak to, or I want to send it to. So I'm going to name my teacher again that I had previously. So in this instance, they're going to get 2 copies. They're going to get a copy link and a share. You normally would send one or the other. You wouldn't send both. If you want to, you can get the copy link from here as well, or you can go straight to Outlook and it will compose an email and bring in their address and bring the link in as well. So I can put a message in here. I might say, hi, please take a look at this template and update with school logo and address. And I'll put on there, thanks. So this is replacing the need to have that separate email. Now, you've only got 500 characters in here, but usually that's enough to get you through. You press send, and then the person receiving that will end up with, in their shared list, having a folder, or sorry, a file that'll appear there called letter template or templates, and that will then allow them to click on that, get into the file that's saved in my OneDrive, and then they'll be able to get into that headed paper, that was the name of it, get into that headed paper, and they'll be able to edit it. So if I move it, the link maintains. So I do decide, oops, I've left that there, my mistake. I do want that to go in my templates folder. It doesn't matter. It won't affect things like that. It will just go into that folder, and then it will quite happily readjust the link and redirect them to it being in there. It's okay. If you have shared and you think, well, do you know what? I don't want people to be accessing that anymore. Over here on the top right hand corner, there's an I for an information button. If you click that information button, as well as being able to see the activity in the document, and there's another way to get to version history. If you scroll up, you can see it has access, and what you can do is manage the access. And if I open that up, I will see in there that the person who has shared access is the teacher. If I want to revoke that access, what I can do is press the cross, and after that it removes it, and then all of a sudden it goes from being a shared document to being a private document. If I refresh the browser, it will eventually pick up, and it'll pick up that's no longer shared and it's become private again. But that teacher, even though they had the link, it would no longer work for them because I've revoked their permissions, and their permissions mean that they can't get in here any longer. As well as having the renaming option down here, you've got the renaming option up here. Something that we talk about on a following session to this introductory session is you can use something called Automate. So there's Power Automate tools. So what you can do is start to automate some of the jobs that you would normally have done manually. So if you know a file is copied in to your OneDrive and it gets a particular name regularly, so it might be newsletter, what you could do maybe is create a rule that when your OneDrive detects a file, or maybe it's a Word document with the title newsletter or the words newsletter in the title, you can set up an automated rule so it moves it to a folder in here, maybe called newsletter. So you don't have to worry about where you create it, it tidies itself. But Automate is an entirely separate training session, but just to let you know that that's another benefit. It can reduce workloads because it does some of the legwork for you to tidy those things up. As far as your OneDrive is concerned, you've got options to fine-tune your view. So over here you can have it as a list, or you can have a condensed and compact list, which makes it even tightly packed, or you can have it as tiles. So if you prefer to see a document, one of the great things about that is you'll get a little preview of what's in there by having it organized as tiles rather than a list, or you can go back to the list. Choice is yours. You've got an option for how things are sorted, so you can sort it by the type, as in Word document, Excel. You can have it sorted by name, dates modified, the person modifying it, the size of the file, and so forth. And it's pretty customizable. You've also got the ability to click on the headers and sift at the same time. So the beauty is that your files now are no longer stuck on a server and you have to use remote connection software like a VPN. You could be in Spain on holiday, and I'm not suggesting for a minute you should be checking schoolwork, but if you needed to, you could get to your files because all of a sudden they're stored securely in the cloud, but only you have access because this is associated with your Office 365 account that you use for your Outlook most frequently, but it gives you your OneDrive. If you start to use your OneDrive, it is worth getting that app set up on your computer, because then you can use it just like a folder on your computer and it will just sync back to the cloud for you anyway. OneDrive doesn't just hold Microsoft files, it can hold any file type. If in this list it happened to be something like a smart notebook file for smart boards, it's fine, you'll see it in the list, but if you tried clicking it in the web version, it would say, I'm not sure what to use to open this file because it hasn't got Smart Notebook installed in your OneDrive. That's one of the other reasons why, particularly for teaching staff, they have the OneDrive app, because if they have put in a non-Microsoft file in their OneDrive, it will find the appropriate software on their computer and it will open it up and use it to manage it from there. Before we go across from OneDrive's and personal cloud storage to shared cloud storage, are there any questions about OneDrive or anything you'd like me to recover, or anything you think that I haven't covered you'd like me to touch upon? Nothing at all? Okay. So the other side of the coin from your My Files is either going to be SharePoint or Teams. So just like before, from the app launcher in the corner, you can go down and you can choose SharePoint, or you can open up Teams. Teams can also be a piece of software that's installed on your computer. Today, I'm showing you everything as tabs in the web browser, but you might have the Teams app open, and that's fine to do everything I'm going to show you now in the app on your computer. They work in exactly the same way. SharePoint itself is something that larger schools have tended to use, or trusts, and you can create effectively an intranet. So you've got an area here where I've created some tiles and I can click on it and I can navigate around. But often behind all of this, so it might be if this was a secondary school, I've got English, maths and science, I might have subjects. So if I drop the subjects down, I might go to science, for instance. If I click on science, I've got what then looks like a very similar scenario. SharePoint in its layout practically mirrors OneDrive, except down the left-hand side, you don't have My Files, Shared, and the other options. But everything else is the same. I've still got folders. I've still got, if I went into those folders, I can't remember if I put anything in there. I haven't. The navigation at the top is the same. So it's Teams meeting, so I can move backwards and forwards between. I've got my new document options here. I've got my upload options, or I can drag and drop. And there's a few more things that you can do in SharePoint that enables collaborative work. But if I happen to have in team meetings, let's say I create a new Word document in here, and that Word document is called Meeting Minutes. And we might have a look at, I don't know, new curriculum, and we might do some moderation of work. With that, then, that's the minutes of our meeting. We could be taking those in real time if we wanted to during the meeting. It could automatically be saving for everyone. Or if I wanted people to add items to the meeting, I could share this document in the first place or draw their attention to it. And then they could come and type into this so that when we get to the meeting, we've got all the areas that we're expecting to discover as a group, discuss as a group of people. Because it's stored in SharePoint, I don't have to share it, unlike I did previously in my OneDrive. SharePoint is collaborative, so what you would have is a group of people that are permitted access to this, be it the whole staff or a certain group of staff in the school, so you can limit it so that SharePoints maybe was only an SLT SharePoint, and then only people in a group called SLT would be able to access that shared area, a bit like you've got limited access to drives on your server. So SharePoint is what you would use if you want to collaborate or have things available to groups of people. OneDrive doesn't lend itself to that very well because you'll be continually sharing, sending share links or managing that sharing. That's why you use SharePoint and not OneDrive. OneDrive, personal, private, share the odd thing. Collaborating and working together is better done in SharePoint. One of the uses where it's most collaborative for OneDrive might be report writing season. So a member of the teaching staff's writing their reports, they share them with the head, and then maybe the head could get into the teacher's OneDrive or take a copy of them to the teacher's drive. But most often, even reports these days, people are finding SharePoint works better for that. So SharePoint structured in a very, very similar way. Moving across to Teams, if I was to go into a staff team, the staff team itself, it's got on the top here, it's got a files section. When you go to the files section, you've got some folders in here and documents that have been used in my group of staff. Again, you've got the familiar items at the top on the ribbon. So you've got your ability to create folders and new Word documents. You've got the ability to upload, and you can also drag and drop in here. You've got the ability to download and so forth. So I could, if I wanted to, make a new document in here. But you'll notice there's a little button over here that says open in SharePoint, because really the files section in Teams is just SharePoint in disguise. And if you click open in SharePoint, it will then bring you to the SharePoint view, and you'll get all of those familiar items that you've seen before, where you can manage your folders and files and documents, and everyone can see them together. If you want to, you can also have those added into the OneDrive software on your computer. So if you knew that actually you needed to get to the staff shared area, because the staff team becomes the new staff shared drive, and it replaces the server shared drive for staff, private to the staff, pupils can't see it. If you press the sync button, it will then sync that to your computer as well, and it will appear underneath your OneDrive as a mapped SharePoint, so that you can go in and out of there. So a bit like you used to have the server shared areas mapped on your computer, you can map your SharePoint areas. And then everyone can merrily go on with adding files and folders. And as people add to this, a bit like they would on a shared area on the server, you'll see all those folders and files and documents appearing there. If somebody is in, let's go into an admin document here, you can quite happily have multiple people working online. So if I had shared something or it was in a shared area, I could have 10, 20, 50 people who are in here, and what they would all have is a little flag with their initials or their name next to it. And as they were typing, all that text would be appearing in real time here. You haven't got to have different versions and merge them together afterwards. They can all merrily work in the same document, and it's all saving constantly. Again, you could either do that between staff, or if it's something that you're using in a team that's got pupils in it, so it might be a class team. So here's an example of a primary classroom. If it was one of my files in there and I had pupils working in it, I could be working in there with pupils in real time as well, so we could all be in the same document. So it could be used for teaching and learning, but it can be used for practically any role in the school. So what we're covering today with OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams is fully transferable to anyone in the school, as long as they've got a login to Office 365. They can start to think about where they're going to put their files, whether it's something they need to share with a group, well, SharePoint and Teams, or whether it's something in OneDrive, well, it's private, it needs to go there. I'm going to swap back over to the presentation unless there's any questions. So I'll just give you a second to ask anything if you think you need to ask anything. No? Okay. So the Microsoft Education Center, once you're in there, if you search for OneDrive, it will bring up the courses on OneDrive, which I've condensed together for today's training session. And that's where you'll be able to get the materials that I've covered. There are also, so the useful sessions to go in there are also linked to Teams, but there are training sessions for things like opening files in OneNote and how to organize your Teams files directory for SharePoint as well. So there's lots of different things you can use to get your information and get your background knowledge. Today's session is one of a whole sequence of training webinars that we're offering free of charge with Microsoft. So as you can see, session one was today, but there's other sessions that are going to be running. So if you're thinking, Martin's talked a lot about Teams, but I could do with knowing a bit more about Teams, we're going to be running one more focused on teaching and learning and transforming teaching and learning with Teams, but you would pick up quite a bit of knowledge by coming along. We're going to run another session on how to use Microsoft Forms for collecting data or managing classroom quizzes. Then we'll look at learning tools for accessibility to learning through the tools that are built into Office 365. We'll move into then having a look at how to make sways as a way of using Sway for presentations or school newsletters, and then we'll finish off this sequence. We're looking at Minecraft Education Edition, which is the education version of Minecraft, which is very different to Minecraft, which people might use for gaming. I mean, you can use that for delivering the curriculum. So if you think you've come along today and found value in this, share it with other people in your school. Every school has been emailed by Turn It On, so the team managers have sent all the key contacts in the school a newsletter, and on there are all the links to book those. And first, now it's to say congratulations. There's a code at the bottom there that you can copy and you can use, and that code will enable you to pop it into the Microsoft Education Center, and in the Microsoft Education Center, it will then give you the 1,000 points. What that looks like in reality, if I go to the next slide, the code is still there at the top right-hand corner. You haven't lost the code. Once you've signed in, and the left-hand screenshot, it will go to your initials. You click your initials and it will open up a box that says redeem achievement code. You'll get a little pop-up window that comes in the middle of the screen. And then in that pop-up window, you type the code that you've got on the screen and you'll instantly be given the 1,000 points and accredited for doing today's custom training on OneDrive. And you'll be given a status of being a Microsoft Innovative Educator, which you might want to use for your own professional development, or you may go and choose to add those other courses to it afterwards. So really the choice is yours. I'm also going to grab that code and post it in the chat so it's easier to copy and paste. And in a moment, I'll add in the link there for the Microsoft Education Center too. So there's the code coming up now. That's the code in the chat there for you. And I'll just go and grab the Microsoft Education Center link for you. So that's also really easy to find. While you're doing that, is there anything that anybody wants to share with what they're doing in their school, or you've got anything that you want to discuss with me? Maybe you need to pick my brains about something. I'm more than happy to try and answer any questions. At this point, I am also going to stop the recording. So if you do worry about being recorded, you don't have to after this point, and you'll be able to ask questions quite merrily. So I'm going to end the recording here for everybody that's watching this afterwards. Don't forget to redeem your code. And if you need to contact Turn It On, you can contact us on office@turniton.co.uk.